The story of Tavares isn't just about chart-topping hits and disco lights, it's about family, survival, and a legacy that refuses to fade. In the 1970s, these five brothers from New Bedford rose from humble beginnings to conquer the world. Their flawless harmonies echoing through clubs, radios, and living rooms everywhere. But what became of them after the spotlight dimmed? Who's still alive in 2025? And how have the years treated the voices that once defined an era? Their journey is filled with triumphs, heartbreaks, and moments you won't believe. So buckle up, because the real story of Tavares goes far beyond the glitter and grooves. And what you're about to hear will change how you remember one of disco's greatest families. Their story begins long before their first single ever touched a radio station. The roots of Tavares stretch back to their father, Feliciano Flash Tavares Sr., a towering presence in the Cape Verdean American community of southern New England. He was a self-taught guitarist and singer, blending Cape Verdean melodies with American jazz in the 1940s. Long before his sons would ever step into the spotlight, he was known in the community as Flash, and for 6 decades he was a beacon of Cape Verdean American music, respected in clubs and dance halls across the region. Music was not just entertainment in the Tavares household, it was the air they breathed. Their mother Albina was a singer as well, and their aunt, Victoria Vicky Vieira, carved her own path by merging Cape Verdean songs with jazz. She performed with groups like the Skyliners and Phil Bibos's Latin Dance Band, where a teenage chick Korea once played piano. The household of the Tavares family was always alive with conversation, laughter, and records spinning in the background. A perfect incubator for future stars. The brothers John, Ralph, Arthur Pooch, Anton Chubby, Victor Butch, and Harry Tiny grew up under the musical guidance of their father. They were taught not just how to sing, but how to listen, how to blend, how to create harmony. They were mesmerized by the sound of doo-wop groups like the Flamingos, the Moonlows, and the Harptones, practicing for hours until they could achieve the same shimmering harmonies. John, the eldest, was the clown, the frontman, the one who could light up a room, and he taught his brothers the intricacies of layering harmonies until their voice is moved as one. One of the brothers would later reflect that they came from a family of 7 brothers and 3 sisters, and every single one of them could sing, but John was the natural leader. As they grew older, their ambitions began to take shape. Arthur Pooch, Anton Chubby, and Victor Butch first formed a group called Chubby and the Realities, performing at high school dances, Catholic youth centers, and teen clubs since they were too young to play in bars, while other groups cut their teeth in smoky nightclubs. The brothers were charming teenagers who built their reputation on the New England teen circuit. Meanwhile, their brother Ralph had taken a very different path. He joined the U.S. Army's Airborne Division, serving as a paratrooper at Fort Campbell on the Kentucky-Tennessee border. But even military service couldn't pull him away from music. On weekends, Ralph traveled north to Detroit, immersing himself in the legendary 20 Grand Club, the beating heart of the Motown scene. There he watched acts like the Contours, the Marvelettes, and the Four Tops up close. It was a revelation. Ralph studied their stagecraft, their harmonies, their energy. Later he admitted he was impressed, but he also believed that his brothers could do the same thing, maybe even better. Those weekends in Detroit planted the seed of ambition that would later transform the family's destiny. When Ralph was honorably discharged in 1964, he returned to New England with a new sense of purpose. He discovered that his brothers were already playing in a nightclub band, but not being paid fairly by the band leader. Ralph realized they had talent, but no direction, so he stepped in. He told them it was time to think bigger, to rehearse harder, to polish their act and aim for a record deal with a major label. He became not just another voice in the lineup, but the strategist and organizer. The brothers agreed, and soon they were rehearsing with a vengeance. By 1967, their hard work paid off with a break in Boston, opening for the O'Jays. Backing them that night was a group called the Preachers, led by saxophonist Quinn Harris, a student at the prestigious Berklee College of Music under the mentorship of Quincy Jones. Harris's band included drummer Jim Atkins and a young keyboard player named Bernie Worrell. who would later become a legend with Parliament Funkadelic. The chemistry between the brothers and the musicians was instant, giving the group the power and polish of a full professional act. They soon secured a regular engagement at the Jim Nantz Lounge Club in Boston, owned by Patriots football star Jim Nantz. Under the bright lights of that club, dressed in sharp suits with harmonies tighter than ever, the brothers were no longer just another local family act. They were becoming one of the hottest attractions in the Northeast. When drummer Jim Atkins left, he was replaced by fiery young Joey Kramer, who would later join Aerosmith. The group pushed beyond New England into New York City, hustling for gigs and chasing opportunities. Their persistence caught the attention of Capitol Records, which offered them a deal. But the label had one condition: their name, Chubby, and the realities sounded outdated. They needed something fresh, modern, symbolic of America. They became Chubby and the Turnpikes, a name inspired by the growing interstate highway system. In 1968, their first single, I Know the Inside Story, back with I Didn't Try, was released. It became a regional hit, played heavily on local radio and sparking excitement at their live shows. Though it never became a national hit, the record would later be hailed as one of the finest Northern soul tracks of its time. Their live performances grew stronger, and Ralph secured another crucial ally, Ruth Bowen, the first African-American woman to open her own booking agency. Bowen was a powerhouse who had managed soul greats, and when she saw the brothers, she knew immediately what they could become. Under her guidance, their bookings improved, and they soon found themselves opening for Ike and Tina Turner at the Boston Arena, standing their ground alongside one of the most electrifying acts in the world. But change was coming again. Chubby stepped away from the group, and the name no longer fit. By the early 1970s, they decided to embrace their family identity fully. They dropped the gimmicks and became simply Tavares. It was the beginning of their true rise. In 1973, the music world finally heard the polished harmonies of Tavares on a national scale. Their first single under that family name, Check It Out, was more than just a debut, it was a statement. The track, sleek and harmony-rich, showed off the brothers' ability to blend voices with a smoothness that rivaled any vocal group of the era. The single soared into the top 40 on the pop charts and climbed into the top 10 on the R&B charts, earning the brothers critical recognition and a loyal fan base. Their debut album, also titled Check It Out, cemented them as a rising force in American music. For the five brothers from New Bedford, Massachusetts, who had grown up singing in their father's living room, it was the realization of years of discipline, rehearsals, and dreams. Yet, as with any family, the story came with twists. Just as the spotlight was beginning to shine its brightest, Victor Tavares, who had sung lead on their breakout hit, decided to step away from the group. For many acts, losing a lead vocalist might have spelled disaster. But for Tavares, their greatest strength was always their collective harmony. They carried on, and instead of slowing down, they surged forward. In 1974, they hit a major milestone with their first #1 R&B single, She's Gone. The track, a soulful ballad that showcased their ability to deliver heart-stopping harmony, was a turning point. It proved that they were more than a one-hit wonder, more than just another R&B act. They were craftsmen of soul music. Their interpretation of love and heartbreak resonated across radio stations and record players, further solidifying their place in the industry. But the following year would launch them into superstardom. Their 1975 album, In the City, was a breakout success. It contained the hits Remember What I Told You to Forget and the explosive It Only Takes a Minute. The latter, in particular, became a defining moment in their career. With its upbeat tempo, irresistible hook, and razor-sharp vocals, it stormed into the pop top 10 while simultaneously hitting #1 on the R&B charts. It was the song that brought Tavares into the mainstream spotlight and onto the playlists of radio stations nationwide. Riding that momentum, they scored one of their biggest honors, opening for the Jackson 5, performing before massive crowds of screaming fans. They proved they could stand shoulder to shoulder with one of the greatest pop acts of all time. Then came 1976, and with it, the songs that would forever define the legacy of Tavares. That year, they released Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel and Don't Take Away the Music. Both tracks exploded into international hits, igniting dance floors from New York to London, from Paris to Rio de Janeiro. Their blend of soul and disco was infectious, and suddenly, the brothers were not just American stars, they were global icons. Their music was everywhere, from radio stations to nightclubs, and their faces became synonymous with the joyous pulse of the disco era. In 1977, they continued their reign with another #1 R&B hit, Whodunit. The song's playful lyrics and irresistible rhythm gave fans yet another reason to flock to record stores, reinforcing the group's reputation as one of the most consistent vocal acts of the decade. But the biggest milestone of their career was still to come. That same year, Tavares were invited to contribute to the soundtrack of Saturday Night Fever, the film that would come to define disco culture. They recorded their rendition of the Bee Gees' More Than a Woman, and it became a worldwide smash. The Saturday Night Fever soundtrack went on to sell over 40 million copies, making it one of the best-selling albums in history. For Tavares, it was a crowning achievement. Their song was now forever tied to the cultural phenomenon of disco, played in dance halls, roller rinks, and clubs across the globe. The brothers, who had once been singing in small community halls in Massachusetts, now had their voices immortalized on one of the greatest albums ever released. For their contribution, Tavares won their first and only Grammy Award, a recognition that placed them firmly in the history books. It was the pinnacle of their career, the moment when everything they had worked for, the rehearsals in their father's home, the teen circuit gigs, the hustling for record deals, paid off in spectacular fashion. By the late 1970s, Tavares had become more than a musical act. They were cultural icons. Their songs captured joy, romance, and the vibrant energy of the disco era. From It Only Takes a Minute to Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel and More Than a Woman, their voices became part of the soundtrack of people's lives. For fans who lived through the era, hearing a Tavares track was not just about music, it was about memories, about a time when the dance floor was a place of freedom, unity, and celebration. The mid-1970s had given them superstardom, and their harmonies, now backed by international acclaim, had proven that five brothers from New Bedford could rise to the very top of the world. But as the 1970s turned to the 1980s, disco began to fade. Determined not to be trapped by the label of a disco act, the brothers shifted direction. Albums like Madame Butterfly in 1979 and Supercharged in 1980 leaned back into R&B and socially conscious themes. Songs like Never Had a Love Like This, Before and Bad Times kept them on the R&B charts, even as their pop dominance cooled. They eventually moved from Capitol Records to RCA Records, scoring one last major hit with A Penny for Your Thoughts in 1982, which earned them another Grammy nomination. Their 1983 album Words and Music marked the end of their chart era. By the mid-1980s, the whirlwind years of constant touring and chart-topping hits had begun to take their toll. In 1984, Ralph Tavares, the eldest brother and the group's guiding strategist, made the difficult decision to retire from the stage. Ralph had been the glue that held the brothers together, the organizer and disciplinarian who had transformed their raw family talent into a polished act, capable of conquering the national stage. For 2 decades he had been at the center of everything, but eventually he stepped away, seeking a quieter and more stable life. He returned home to New Bedford, Massachusetts, where he worked as a court officer, living far from the spotlight that had once shone so brightly upon him. Though his life had changed, his influence on the group and its legacy remained undeniable. He was the architect of the dream, the one who had made his brothers believe they could rise to the very top. With Ralph's retirement, the remaining brothers adapted. Arthur Pooch Tavares took on a larger role behind the scenes, managing the group's affairs. He became the steady hand ensuring their bookings, tours, and business dealings were handled properly. While he no longer performed as often, his presence was felt in every aspect of the band's continued work. Harry "Tiny" Tavares, whose soaring tenor had carried many of the group's biggest hits, branched into solo work. In 2012, he released his own project, an album titled Jealousy, proving that even after decades in the business, his voice still possessed its power and soul. The other brothers carried on performing together, keeping the family's sound alive for loyal fans who still packed theaters and clubs to see them. But tragedy struck the family in 2008 when their beloved father, Feliciano "Papa Flash" Tavares, passed away. It was the end of an era. Flash had been the foundation of their musical upbringing, the man who taught them their first chords and harmonies in the family living room, the one whose passion for music ran through all of them. His death left a deep void, but his spirit continued to live in the voices of his sons. Heartbreak struck again in 2021. Just 2 days before the group's 50th anniversary, Ralph Tavares passed away. For the brothers, it was a devastating blow. The timing could not have been more poignant, for Ralph had been the original dreamer, the strategist who had made them believe they could conquer the music world. His passing left fans and family mourning, but it also reminded everyone of his crucial role in shaping one of the greatest family acts in R&B history. Still, the music never stopped. In 2009, Harry "Tiny" Tavares Jr., the next generation of the family, joined the group. His arrival ensured that the name would carry on into the future. Like his father, he possessed undeniable vocal talent, and in 2012 he even released his own solo project, also titled Jealousy, showcasing that the Tavares family gift had not skipped a generation. In 2013, the brothers were recognized formally for their decades of contributions to R&B and soul. At a gala event in Atlantic City, they received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National R&B Music Society. The moment was historic. For the first time in nearly 40 years, all 6 brothers reunited on stage. Their harmonies, still razor sharp, rang out just as they had in their heyday, thrilling fans and proving that time had not dimmed their gift. It was a magical reunion that reminded the world of the unique power of family voices blended together. Today, in 2025, the legacy of Tavares continues. Though Ralph is gone, remembered as the strategist and foundation stone, his brothers carry the torch in their own ways. Arthur Pooch, now 83, no longer sings on stage but remains the quiet force behind the group's operations, protecting the family's name and history. Anton Chubby, now 81, has chosen a life of privacy, focusing on his family and community, but occasionally reuniting with his brothers for special events. Harry "Tiny", at 76, still performs selectively, reminding audiences that his voice remains as powerful as ever. Victor Butch, now 74, lives a quieter, more private life but continues to sing at special occasions, keeping his connection to the music that defined him. And Victor, who first sang lead on their breakthrough hit Check It Out, lives largely out of the public eye at 77, but his place in their remarkable story remains secure. Though they no longer dominate the charts, Tavares remains one of the most respected family groups in music history. Their harmony shaped the soundtrack of the 1970s. Their songs still spin at parties and weddings, and their story continues to inspire. Their journey is proof that while fame may fade, family, music, and legacy endure. The story of Tavares is not just about chart success or disco lights. It is the story of a family who turned a Cape Verdean living room filled with song into a launching pad for worldwide fame. It is about a father who passed his passion down to his children, about brothers who worked tirelessly together, and about the power of harmony that transcends generations. From Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel to More Than a Woman, their music captured joy, romance, and resilience. And though the height of their fame may have passed, their songs continue to resonate. Proof that true harmony never fades. The legacy of Tavares proves that true harmony never fades. Their songs still inspire joy, love, and nostalgia across generations. If their music ever lit up your life, let us know your favorite memory in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories from the golden era of soul and disco. Thanks for watching.